Ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds, welcome back to another episode of Dissecting Minecraft. How's it going, Methods?
Hey, I'm fine.
Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of stuff set up, ready to show you. Look at all this. Oh yes, a load of good stuff. So yeah, we're going to get onto that. But before we do that, just a couple of things I just wanted to mention. So first of all, thank you so much for all of the positive feedback we got from last episode. It's really good to hear all that stuff and really good to get all your comments and suggestions. So keep that stuff coming. So one thing we're interested in is if you could let us know the kind of things that you're struggling with when it comes to technical Minecraft. And we can use that to shape our future episodes and the things we talk about. So that would be really good to hear. And yeah, the other thing is just to mention is that don't forget this episode is, or this series, should I say, is a progressive series. So we're going to start off with the basic stuff like last episode. And as we go further and further into the series, we'll get more and more complex as we go. All right, so let's get into this thing. So first of all, we've got a few things to mention from last episode. So first of all, we've got a correction to make. So Methods, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I dropped a little bit, and the wooden button is, I think I said 25 game ticks or something like that, and that's completely not true. It's 30. Wooden button is 30 games.
And I've got do you want to just stand down there? I've got a little present for you. Go stand on that button. Just so you don't forget. Have some buttons. All right, and then we've got a few other things here that we could have mentioned last episode, but we kind of either forgot to or we left out on purpose. So this first one I'll take. So this one here is when it comes to buttons, obviously you can activate them by pressing them, but you can also activate them by shooting them with an arrow like this. Oh yes, so you can practice your target skills with an arrow.
Okay, then next we have the order in which droppers push out items, and it is completely random. So if you look inside of these, they have 9 different colored blocks, and every time I press it, it will be one random color selected. Next, we have the shulker box, which is placeable by dispensers. Forgot. And of course, all kinds of minecarts. That means normal minecarts, furnace minecarts, and chest minecarts, and TNT minecarts. Technically, also command block minecarts and spawner minecarts can be placed by dispensers on rails. Then we had the water torch powers that is on the side of a block.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can see all the strong and weak powered blocks by it.
So the block itself that it's occupying is powered, and the one above it is powered. But the block that it's attached to, so the block that the stalk, if that's the right word, is attached to, that's not powered at all, right?
No, that's not powered.
Okay.
And here is basically the same with a torch on top of a block.
Mm-hmm.
Same applies here. Also, this block is not powered.
Oh yeah, so here we're going to talk about inverting power. I think we kind of mentioned it last time, but we're going to just reiterate it here with a few examples.
So here we simply have a powered redstone line pointing into a block, which powers the torch that is connected to it, turning it off. And if we flick this lever, our output will turn on while our input is off. So we've basically inverted the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have the same with a button again. And now comes an interesting part. You can absolutely stack this. So here's just the same thing, just stacked. Torch after torch after torch, and they always alternate between on and off. Here's another way of stacking them.
And there seems to be a delay there as well. So from when you flip the lever...
Every torch adds like a repeater 2 game ticks of delay.
2 game ticks, okay, right. Okay, that's good to know. And then just like a real world example here, you might want to have a door for your base, like a piston door. So here's a really simple way to do it. Yeah, you have your torch that's on by default that powers these pistons, so your door is obviously closed. And then when you press the button, that will depower the torch and release those pistons. So next up, we've got these pressure plates.
Exactly, the weighted and the heavy weighted pressure plate. So we talked about them last episode. What we did not really mention is how they work. And so we mentioned shortly that they only output a signal strength of 1, and that it depends on the amount of entities of them. So on the gold pressure plate, it's 1 entity equals 1 signal strength, 2 entities equal 2, 3 entities equal 4, and so on. And on the heavy-weighted pressure plate, 1 to 10 entities equal 1 strength, 11 to 22 entities equal 2 strength, and so on. We will provide a link in the description to the wiki where there's a nice little flow chart that will tell you all the numbers, but it's pretty.
And then the other thing when it comes to repeaters and comparators is that the signal strength only flows one way. So you can see here we've powered them from this end, and it powers the redstone obviously, but then when it gets to the repeater it doesn't. But if you power it from the other end, the power goes all the way through. So that's a good way to control the direction of power when it comes to redstone lines. So next up, we wanted to talk a bit more about game ticks. So we briefly mentioned those last time, and we said last time that a game tick is a 20th of a second. But I think it's worth exploring that in a little bit more detail because game ticks are integral to basically anything redstone related, when it comes to timing. So here, what we've got here is we've got a bunch of blocks all set up there, and this is supposed to represent a second. So imagine this line of blocks represents 1 second in time, and we've divided it up into 20 segments with these orange blocks, or these yellow blocks, should I say. And so each one of these segments here, these 3 blocks, is 1 tick. So the game runs in a loop, and it's constantly processing ticks. So it processes this tick, then it processes the next tick, and then the next tick, and so on, all the way through the game. And so one thing we wanted to talk about here is just an example here. So let's say we have this repeater that gets powered inside this first game tick right here. Now, because it's on a delay of 4 ticks, the game then waits for 4 ticks. So we've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4. And then at this tick here, this is when the power comes on for that repeater. So that's the idea there, what we're trying to demonstrate. Hopefully that makes sense. And then over here, we've scaled this all the way up. So this line right here is 1,000 blocks long, and it does actually go out for 1,000 blocks. If I just go this way a bit, you'll see it goes all the way into the distance. And so each of these yellow posts that come out, these yellow columns, that represents the start of a new tick. And so the reason I've picked 1,000 blocks is because if you divide a second into 1,000, you get 1 millisecond. So 1 block here represents 1 millisecond in time. So what happens inside a tick is what we're going to talk about now. Methods, I'm going to try and do this, but feel free to correct me when I make a mistake. So inside a tick, a bunch of things happen inside the game. So here we have a list of things. So first of all, there's some player updates that happen. So I guess that means a player moves around the world, presses buttons, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
The next thing is the weather happens. So I'm guessing this is things like the game decides, should I change from normal weather to a thunderstorm, that kind of thing. Then we have
lightnings.
Lightning and that kind of stuff, right? Then we have a bunch of time where the game does mob spawning. So in the future episodes, we're going to talk about the details of how mob spawning works. But for now, just imagine that the game spends a bit of time working out what mobs to spawn and where. Then it processes any kind of redstone it needs to process. That takes a bit of time. Then we do things like random ticks. So that's when your plants might decide to grow. Now and again, that happens in the game. Then we have things like villages and iron golem spawning, that kind of stuff happens. And then lastly, we have tile entities. So that's things like hoppers, where they decide to suck things up, that kind of stuff. So in this example here, for each of these things, we've just given an example of how long these things might take. So player updates might take 3 blocks here, which is 3 milliseconds. Weather might take 2, etc. And so if you were to add up all of those blocks, that would give you 18 blocks. So in this example, it's taken us 18 milliseconds to process everything we need in this tick. And that there is a term for that, and that is an MSPT. So that is milliseconds per tick. So in this case, it's 18 milliseconds per tick. So, and why is that important? Well, if you take 1,000 blocks, like we've got here, so 1,000 milliseconds, which is your second, and divide it by 20, you get 50. And so, hopefully I'm getting this right, I'm not getting out my depth too much, but so what we're aiming for here is we need to make sure that your tick is processed within 50 milliseconds. Because if it takes longer than 50 milliseconds, that means the game can't keep up with the 20 ticks per second, and then your game will start lagging. So how did I do, Methods?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good.
So anything you want to add or
the only thing I would like to add is the 18 milliseconds per tick is not very realistic if we look right now. So if we do log TPS and hit the Alt button, then we can see our MSPT right now 0.7. So all of this stuff here happens, and this all happens in 0.7 milliseconds. But Of course, showcasing that would be a little bit hard because we can't place 0.7 blocks here and have all the signs on them. So keep that in mind. It's not necessarily kept at. It's just an example. Otherwise, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Right, so on to some other things. So hopefully that didn't blow too many minds. All right, so I'll let you talk about these stuff methods.
Okay, here we just have another little showcase. What is powered by redstone dust? As you can see here in a line, it will not power to the sides or to the top. Same goes for a corner here. It will only power what it points into, as we have over here. And here again, we have the strong powered and the weak powered lamp. And over here, we only have this one weak powered. Because this last redstone dot here powers the block it's on, and the block it's on powers the lamp.
Right, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Then we have another quick example of redstone can go up and down on a staircase like this. And then we have slabs, hoppers, observers, glowstone, and staircases for redstone dust, which only work up from bottom to. So you can try all of these, they will all turn on. And if we try the one back here, this will actually just do nothing.
Right, so with these ones, they only go up. They don't go down the stack.
Yep. Vertical one-way wiring, basically.
Right. Oh, one thing I just thought of, one thing to mention is if you have redstone on a block and that block gets moved by piston, the redstone pops off. Is that right?
Yes, redstone is not movable.
Right.
Redstone dust.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Oh, these stairs is a good one. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like as redstone. So as long as the top surface is flat, is that like a general rule?
Yep.
Okay. Cool stuff. So over here we've got some more bits to show. So this is in case you want to cut the line off and what you can do and what you can't do with blocks.
Yeah, so for example, slabs and glass, and the same goes for a lot of other blocks like hoppers and stairs, will not block the redstone flow, as we can see here. But for example, a full block would completely block it. The dust cannot connect.
Mm-hmm.
You can also see there's no dust animation here on the side of the block. And therefore it will not power through this.
Right. Okay.
And it's just a basic rule to redstone. This just does not work. If you want to do this, you have to do something like here. I think there's also another example.
Yeah, so this is something I set up that I wanted to ask about. So we showed here that this block. Well, let's look at this one here first. So this one with the lever on. So we're strongly powering this block, and below it, the redstone gets powered because of that. But in this example that we just had over here, we are sending this redstone into this block. So this block is strongly powered. But in this instance, the redstone underneath is not powered.
Yeah, and this is the special rule to redstone. You cannot receive redstone power through a strongly powered block by another redstone dust. You need, in between, you need a repeater or a comparator to actually get the output.
Right.
Otherwise, you would never really need repeaters or comparators. You could just chain redstone lines without it.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Do this, we can see it turn on. Of course, this introduces delay again.
Right. So how much delay was that again? I know we spoke about that before. Is that
2 game ticks?
2 game ticks, right. Okay.
And then here, quickly, that's also something we kind of forgot in the first episode. This is the dust behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So a dot of a redstone will power everything around it, and also below it, even strong and weak powered. The only block that it will not power is directly above.
Right. So, okay. Directly not above it. Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. I just had to process that for a second. But yeah, that is good. That is good to know. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Guess now we'll reach the observer section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here, this first one, I just wanted to show that I've just done a little bit of a tweak to our textures. So when we power an observer, so we showed this quickly last episode, but when an observer sees a state change in front of it, like if this trapdoor was to move, then it gets powered. But I've just changed the texture slightly so we can see that on the side. So we just get that slight yellow glow. Now, you won't see that in your game. That's just what I've done for our textures, just for demonstration. But yeah, that will come in useful now when we show you some other bits and pieces.
Yeah, so for example, here we have a plain observer chain. It's just one observer after another, updating each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if we trigger this, we will get 2 game ticks of delay for every observer.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 14. And it will pull the piston. And here's another way of doing this. For example, we could be using rails
Mm-hmm.
to use fewer observers. So after 2 game ticks, this will power the rail. Rails are instant, so all of these rails here turn on in the same game tick.
Mm-hmm.
And then trigger this observer, and 2 game ticks later, it pulls the block.
And that's the same with dust. If we were to put dust in there, dust is also instant?
Dust would be exactly the same. The only difference is rails go for 9 blocks, dust goes for 15, and rails do not have signal strength.
Right, okay.
Rail is only on-off.
And we're not really going to talk about lagginess and things like that, but I get the feeling that rails are less laggy than dust?
Yes,
Okay.
much less laggy.
Okay. All right, I'm sure we'll get into things like lag and how to improve performance a bit later on, but that's probably a bit too much for now. So the other thing with observers is, so obviously we can see here that an observer looking at another observer can see the chain of the state changes. That's because an observer enters a powered mode. So when it's powered, that classes as a change in state. So that's why that chain happens. But also you can do these kind of funky things where you can turn things around corners, which is quite cool. So there you go. You can see that does that. So that is very useful to know. I've tried doing that a few times, but yeah, that is super useful in certain situations.
Okay, and next is also something we forgot in the first episode, I think, that droppers can push items into adjacent inventories.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have a chain of droppers. They all face towards here, my direction. And we have some items in them. And if we just click the buttons, we can transport an item all the way.
Okay.
There it goes.
So with this one, so I just wanted to quickly talk about this one. So in here, we've got some items at the beginning and all these other ones are empty. But if I click this first button, okay, so if I look in the next one, that's empty, but the one after, the item's there. So the item is, it seems like the item has skipped that next item. So what's actually happening there? What's really happening there? Because it seems like it's doing two things.
We press this button here,
Mm-hmm.
which strong powers this dropper.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next dropper is weak powered. And as we've seen in the tick explanation beforehand, the very first thing in the updates in the game tick is the player updates. And that means that this first dropper here will update, send the item to this dropper, and in the same game tick, this dropper will send it to the next one. Right at the end of the tick when tile entities get processed.
Oh, I see. So the first one moving to there is because of the player updates, and then the second one is because of the entity updates, tile entity updates at the end. Ah, okay. Perfect. And so of course the item's now here, and as you demonstrated before, it's now going to jump to this one, and then it's going to jump to the last one, and then comes out. All right. Fantastic.
Same works upwards and downwards as well. So here we have the same thing upwards.
Okay, cool.
And for downwards, you're just going to have to believe us.
Yeah. Yes, same thing down. Yeah. Okay.
Here we have the same thing in a little bit more automated way. So you can simply place a line of droppers with a line of observers on top, and you can power this.
Awesome.
And here we have another way of chaining observers using node blocks. We also do a power state change if they triggered.
Okay, so as well as that sounding good, I guess that's the way to do. The reason to do that is because it's a bit cheaper, because you don't have to spend the quartz.
It's cheaper, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, it's less delay. That's always a thing. Every observer adds more delay.
Oh yes, of course. Right. So that's instant then. With a node block, there's no delay at all.
Yep, the node block is instant.
Okay. Awesome.
And then lastly, we wanted to talk a little bit more about hoppers.
Mm-hmm.
So hoppers can be locked by being powered. For example, here we have just a redstone block behind it, which locks this hopper. And if we remove it, you can see the items flowing in.
Yep.
Block it, they're blocked. This can also, of course, be done in other ways. We can, for example, actually we can't put a lever on top of it. Could put a lever here and power it, or adjacent block and power it. All the ways of powering things also work with hoppers. They just do not conduct power. They can be powered, but they will not transfer it to the next block.
Right, and that counts. So if there's hoppers, so in the previous episode we had an example where we have a bunch of hoppers, like in a storage system, when you had some that suck down from others and then push into some chests, for example. So if you were to lock one of the hoppers, like whichever one, so that is only locking this top hopper.
So let's just throw some items here in this top hopper in, and if you look inside, you will see it's still items are still getting sucked out of it.
Right.
And it's simply because now we only lock this top hopper here, and therefore it cannot push items down. But the bottom hopper can still suck items out of the top.
Right.
So we have to actually lock both of them, and then the item flow will stop.
Right. So if you take that one out, does it start flowing again? It does. Ah, okay.
Yeah, because now the top hopper pushes into the bottom one, and then even one lower sucks out again.
And that's because of the top hopper is pointing into the bottom hopper. But if it was pointing into a chest, like in a storage system,
if it was pointing to the side, then one would be.
Right, so because it's pointing to the side, it can't. There's nowhere for it to push it, and the one underneath it is locked, so that
basically
is not allowed to suck
you always have to keep in mind that the direction you point a hopper into, it will always push items, and on the top it will always try to suck items.
Right.
That's what you always have.
Okay, so when you lock a hopper, just to reiterate that, when you lock a hopper, you're locking its ability to suck items down, but also push items out. Okay.
And then lastly, we have how long does it take. That is 8 game ticks per item. Just gonna lock this here. Stick buttons in. And now I'm gonna use a little command. It's called tick freeze. So now the game is completely paused. Nothing gets processed anymore. Ticks are not running at all. And I will remove this block. Still nothing is running. And now I'm going to type tick step 1, which will advance the game forward by 1 game tick. And now you should see 1 item in the chest.
Yep, that's right. 1 button.
And if I now do tick step 8.
Yep, another button.
And again.
Okay.
And again.
Okay.
And this way you can simply see, okay, a hopper transfers an item every 8 game ticks.
Right, okay. And is there, in terms of, so I've added a sign here about the cooldown. So is that the same time in terms of items going on top? So sometimes we have hoppers in a line with like a water stream on top, and sometimes the items come in too quickly for the hopper to take?
Yes, it's the same.
So it's the same time, right?
Yep.
8 game ticks.
So they can, for example, they can suck up a lot of items instantly. Go. So here we have let's make it a stack. So it's 2 stacks. They will instantly disappear as soon as I remove this redstone block. But then the next time it should take 8 games.
Oh, I see. Right. All right, and that pretty much does it. But before we go, we have a challenge for everybody. So Methods, do you want to talk about the challenge?
All right, so here we simply have right now a redstone line, a lever, and a lamp. And the challenge is really simple for the first one. We just want this lamp to turn on after 24 game ticks. And that's going to be your guys' homework. We will show in the next episode how to do it as well. One more rule to it, though. You need to use at least 3 different redstone components that we've shown in today's and the last episode.
Right, okay, so 24 game ticks from when you flip the lever to when the lamp goes on using 3 components. All right. So that is a challenge for everyone. So get your thinking caps on, and then you can either send us a tweet with your pictures, or you can get onto our Discord. The links will be in the description, and show us your screenshots. And we'll give you the answer next week. And if somebody comes up with something novel or a bit funky, then we might show it, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that just about does it for this week. Let me come over here. that just about does it for this week. So thanks everyone for obviously the great feedback from last episode. That was really good. And if you want to help out the series, then a great thing you can do is to hit the like button and also share it with all your friends. Tell them all about it. And if you're new, then feel free to subscribe. And thanks very much. Any comments or suggestions, get it in the comments section. And anything you want to add, Methods?
Nope, I'm happy.
Okay. Oh, great, my geeks. I will see you later.